Crows circle over a dark, sunset sky as the battle winds down. The ground is littered with the bodies of fallen soldiers from both sides. A knight in white armor looms over the dead, his heavy sword dripping with blood. A spray of blood hits the wall, signaling the end of another life in this war. Lucian Valdec, Jake, in his previous life as a mercenary captain, takes one last swig from his flask. He tosses the empty container aside as smoke and fire consume the fortress behind him. He looks back over his shoulder, muttering about how all nobles are full of it. A cynical smirk spreads across his face. He's heard it all before. He leans against the stone wall, his tattered cloak fluttering in the cold wind. The fortress wall is silent as the sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky red. The Imperial Commander-in-Chief, unnamed, a young man with striking red hair and gleaming armor, approaches. The commander stares him down with a gaze that's as cold as the armor he wears. Lucian Valdec, Jake, isn't intimidated and shoots back a sharp, defiant look. He lets out a dry laugh, mocking the noble for even trying to joke in a place like this. He places a hand on his belt, reminding everyone he's just a piece of trash mercenary. His red eyes flash as he dismisses the noble's talk of knightly honor. The commander stands firm, his long blue cape trailing in the dirt. Lucian Valdec, Jake, offers a mocking apology for having a different idea of how this ends. The commander remains stoic, his hand never leaving the hilt of his sword. The mercenary captain turns his head, his face half hidden by the deepening shadows. He gazes out at the city below, which is currently being engulfed in flames. A noble crest is smashed to pieces as the castle walls crumble into ruin. He gestures broadly at the destruction, laughing at the sheer irony of their victory. He bares his teeth in a wild, savage grin, his eyes full of a dark light. The Imperial Commander-in-Chief, unnamed, stands silent among the drifting ash. Lucian Valdec, Jake, asks if the guy really wants a final mission in the middle of this mess. The noble turns his back, his posture radiating a cold, effortless arrogance. He stares blankly into the distance, as if the lives lost mean nothing to him. He holds out a glowing red gem, offering it as final payment for the mercenary's service. He tosses the stone, and it streaks through the air toward Lucian Valdec, Jake. Jake catches it, his expression twisting into a mask of pure rage. He looks down at the slopes below, where his own men are being slaughtered. Anger flares in his eyes as he realizes the magnitude of the betrayal. His fellow mercenaries are being tied to poles and executed in the distance. He confronts the noble on the wall, asking if they really thought they'd just let his crew go. The commander looks back, coldly reminding him that they are just mercenaries, not knights. Lucian Valdec, Jake, laughs, but there's no joy in the sound anymore. He looks completely unhinged as he accepts the brutal nature of his line of work. Deep in the nearby forest, more of his comrades lie dead on the forest floor. A wounded mercenary leans against a tree, coughing up blood in his final moments. A soldier in white armor moves through the trees, making sure no one survives. From the shadows, a blade is drawn to finish off the dying man with a silent strike. The Imperial soldiers aren't taking any chances, double-checking the bodies to make sure no one is just playing dead. Blood sprays across the white armor of a knight as he carries out a systematic execution. They're clearing the woods with cold efficiency, leaving nothing but corpses behind. One of them lets out a roar as he lunges for a killing blow. From atop his horse, the commander curses the bastards, who tried to trick them by hiding among the dead. A quick strike cuts through the silence of the forest, ending the fight before it can even start. Lucian Valdec, Jake, is forced back, his body barely holding together under the sheer pressure of the combat. A severed head rolls into the mud, a grim sign that the mercenary's last-ditch effort failed. Jake's red eyes glare through the slit of his helmet, fixed on the man who just dismantled his entire unit. The red gem sits forgotten on the cold floor, a useless piece of rock now that the deal has gone south. He stands face-to-face with the Imperial Commander-in-Chief, unnamed, two warriors from completely opposite worlds. He clenches his teeth, the tension between the two of them ready to snap at any second. Jake calls out the noble, realizing his men were nothing but sacrificial lambs to draw out the enemy. The commander doesn't blink, his face remaining as cold and unreadable as marble. He reaches for his sword, and you can practically feel the terrifying power radiating off him. Lucian Valdec, Jake, doesn't wait around, lunging forward with every ounce of strength he has left. He knows he's completely outmatched, but he's not the type to just lie down and die. He offers a sincere apology, not for the fight, but to the men he couldn't save from this trap. The noble's hand tightens on his hilt, steady and perfectly calm despite the chaos. Jake stares him down, his eyes burning with a mix of respect and pure, unadulterated spite. The commander's eyes light up with a lethal glow, signaling that the talking is officially over. A ghostly detail of armor shows the gap between them, one forged in luxury, the other in blood. A monstrous, menacing figure looms over the scene, mocking Jake's lack of natural-born talent. Jake just laughs it off, asking if the noble really expects him to just hand over his own head. He sees his own fate laid out in front of him, a severed head discarded in the dirt like trash. He admits he dragged his men into this bloodbath just to chase his own selfish, unreachable dream. They trusted him enough to follow him out of the gutter, and this is where it finally led them. He raises his blade one last time, a lone mercenary standing against a god-tier knight. A small, sad smile touches his lips as he prepares for the end. The Imperial Commander-in-Chief, unnamed, moves in for the kill, his technique flawless and terrifying. He admits he wishes Jake had been his liege. A final salute to a man who did everything right with zero talent. Lucian Valdec, Jake, throws himself into one last, desperate strike. His eyes are wide and focused only on the blade coming for his throat. A single, blinding flash of light cuts through the darkness of the woods. The commander stands alone as the dust settles, his blue cape billowing in the wind. The Imperial Commander-in-Chief looks down, his eyes cold and unimpressed. Jake stares back, his vision blurring as blood stains his face. He realizes the gap between them was just too wide to bridge. The commander walks away, leaving a headless corpse behind in the dirt. Jake's head lies on the cold stone, a bitter thought about talent being his last. Even as the light fades, a faint, bloody smirk stays on his face. He was ready for this end, but one question still lingers in the dark. Everything fades to black, the sounds of battle replaced by a heavy silence. A final drop of blood falls, marking the end of a third-rate mercenary. Suddenly, an eye snaps open, gold light cutting through the gloom. A boy named Hans stands over a bed, frantically begging someone to wake up. A young man with blonde hair lies there, looking completely out of it. A pale hand reaches up toward the light, trembling slightly. Hans doesn't hold back, landing a solid slap to snap his master out of it. The shock of the hit brings Lucian back to reality, his head spinning. Hans collapses in tears, pleading for his master to pull himself together. Lucian sits up, looking around the lavish room with a dazed expression. His eyes are sharp, but he's clearly struggling to process where he is. He sits in the massive bed, staring down at his own hands in disbelief. These aren't the calloused hands of a mercenary. They're soft and delicate. He realizes his original body is gone, replaced by something much weaker. Hans is still there, kneeling by the bed and sobbing his heart out. The servant buries his face in the covers, letting out a wail of pure relief. He looks up, face red and tear-streaked, overjoyed to see his master alive. While Hans continues to cry, Lucian tries to make sense of the situation. It's a lot to take in, especially with a servant crying like his world just ended. He remembers the feeling of the blade and his head rolling across the ground. He definitely died back there. The Imperial Commander made sure of it. A cold sweat breaks out as he wonders how any of this is possible. He's back in the Valdec estate, but something feels very wrong about the timeline. Judging by his surroundings, he stepped into the life of a complete stranger. He pushes the covers aside and forces himself out of the bed. He stands before a full-length mirror, staring at the face of a noble boy. Hans stays back, watching his master's strange behavior with concern. The boy in the mirror looks like pure royalty, radiating an air of nobility. Lucian needs to figure out exactly who this guy is and what's going on. He turns to Hans and demands to know what year it is. The answer hits him like a truck. It's Imperial Year 846. He's gone back 15 years in the past, right into the middle of his former employer's home. He rubs his temples, trying to stop his head from exploding with all this new info. Panic won't help. He needs to focus on what needs to be done first. The look in his eyes changes, and Hans can feel the sudden, chilling shift in the room. Lucian looks at his hand, still adjusting to the feel of his new skin. He turns to his servant and asks if the rules of the house have changed. His cold, sharp gaze makes Hans freeze in place, clearly not used to this version of his master. He asks the obvious question, "Who am I?" Hans immediately hits the floor, begging for forgiveness for his master's sudden memory loss. He cries out that his master is Lucian Valdec, the third son of the prestigious House Valdec. The name Valdec rings a bell, but it's not a fond one. He knows exactly what this place is, a den of monsters and absolute power. It's the home of the Grand Duke, a man who sits on a throne of untouchable authority. In his past life, Lucian had seen that face many times before. Back then, he was just a lowly mercenary who worked as a guard for this very family. He stares at his reflection, finding it hard to believe he's now the person he used to protect. He can't help but chuckle at the sheer absurdity of his situation. He remembers being treated like dirt, with coins thrown at his feet by arrogant nobles. He thinks back to the graveyards where he buried his brothers in arms, a life of blood and loss. He was Jake, a man who lived on the edge with nothing but his sword and a flask. He recalls the moment his soul left that broken body, plunging into the dark. Now, those two lives are forced to share one face in a shattered reflection. Lucian pushes the windows open, letting the morning air sweep away the stench of the past. He puts on a confident smile, decided on making the most of this second chance. He steps out into the massive hallway, with Hans trailing behind like a lost puppy. He's been to all sorts of places during his years as a mercenary, but this Grand Duchy is a battlefield of a different kind, one he needs to master fast. He stops to observe his surroundings, his eyes scanning for any potential threats. Maids stop and whisper, stunned to see the shut-in prince actually walking around. They wonder how many months it's been since he last left his room. Lucian can feel their judgmental glares, but he keeps walking like they aren't even there. He remembers that the original Lucian was a weakling who cowered in the shadows. It seems the boy was a total problem child, abandoned and ignored by his own blood. The servants don't even try to hide their disdain as they watch him pass. He knows that somewhere in this palace, Grand Duke Sigmund is watching over everything. He recalls the few times the Duke actually bothered to check on his useless son. He decides it's best to stay as far away from the Great Lion as possible for now. Just then, a heavy footstep echoes through the hall, stopping him cold. He and Hans look up, realizing their path has been blocked. It's the head butler, Edwin, looking completely surprised to see his master awake. Lucian gives a stiff nod, trying to keep his composure under the old man's gaze. Edwin looks genuinely moved, happy to see the young master finally out of bed. Lucian groans internally. This was the last person he wanted to run into. He takes a deep breath, swallowing his annoyance and putting on a mask. The memory of his former, battle-hardened self stands like a shadow behind him. He forces a polite smile and thanks Edwin for his kind words. Lucian explains that he's taking this chance to look into the family affairs he's neglected for so long. He casually asks if there have been any mishaps within the family while he was away. He keeps a bright, innocent-looking smile on his face, making it hard for anyone to guess what he's really thinking. Lucian walks through the hall as Edwin, the elderly butler with sharp eyes, brings news. A voice delivers a message that stops him in his tracks. Edwin informs him the Grand Duke wants an audience, and the boy looks like he's seeing a ghost. He can barely believe what he's hearing. A portrait of his late mother sits in the corner, a reminder of the grief he used to hide behind. Sigmund's voice booms, accusing him of using that death as a shield for his cowardice. The Grand Duke looks down at his son with nothing but disappointment. Lucian stays silent, his mind racing through memories that aren't quite his own. He remembers waking up to Hans, his young servant, bawling his eyes out by the bed. His golden eyes narrow as he realizes the pathetic state of the body he now inhabits. Outside the doors, the staff whispers about the trash third son finally showing his face. In his mind, he sees the funeral, the end of the old Lucian. The coffin is a cold reminder of how close he came to vanishing completely. The previous owner of this body chose a near-lethal dose of pills just to get noticed. It was a desperate, failed cry for a shred of fatherly attention. He remembers the feeling of fading away, weak and forgotten. But standing before his father now, he isn't that whimpering boy anymore. He takes a hard swallow, feeling the weight of the moment. The tension in the room is so thick it feels like the floor could shatter. One wrong word and his chance at a new life might crack wide open. He focuses, his gaze sharpening with the grit of a veteran mercenary. He thinks back to his past life, running through the frozen hell of a battlefield. He didn't survive being decapitated just to act like a coward again. Looking his father in the eye, he finally breaks the silence. He speaks with a steady voice that catches the Grand Duke off guard. Sigmund starts to turn away, expecting the same old excuses. Lucian realizes that in this world, if you don't have talent, you're nothing but a stepping stone. He exhales, letting the last of his hesitation drift away. The image of a blade flashes in his mind, the tool that ended his first life. He remembers the Imperial Commander-in-Chief, the man whose sheer talent made years of hard work look like a joke. He tells Sigmund he wants to learn the sword, starting with fixing his paper doll body. The room goes quiet as the Duke processes this sudden burst of ambition. Edwin bows, tasked with making the arrangements for this unlikely request. Down in the courtyard, the usual bustle of the estate continues, unaware of the shift. A massive chest of gold coins sits open, the allowance Lucian demanded. Hans is absolutely floored, while Lucian looks at the gold like it's the fuel for his comeback. He heads back to his quarters, a small fortune now under his control. The servant follows behind, looking at his master like he's a completely different person. Hans can't help but tear up, overwhelmed by the change in the boy he's served for so long. Lucian lets the coins slip through his fingers, already planning his next move. His eyes glow with a cold, calculating resolve. Back in his room, he gets to work, preparing the materials to rewrite his very constitution. Lucian looks over the room, ready to start his transformation. Compounding tools sit on the desk, equipment he's never touched as a prince. He leans back, letting the mana from the moon grass wash over him. He's betting that the quality of this potion is going to skyrocket. The ingredients sizzle as they mix together in the mortar. He reaches for the final flask, his movements precise and practiced. The boy holds up a bottle of nectar that glows with a brilliant light. He pops the cork, letting a trail of red vapor escape. It's only a mass-produced version of the legendary elixir, but it'll do the job. His golden eyes narrow as he thinks about how this recipe was lost to time. He stares at the reflection in the glass, seeing the potential for a new life. Without a second thought, he drinks the glowing liquid. He feels the mana paths in his body begin to shift and widen. The energy spreads through his veins like it's finally found its home. He feels like he's floating in a deep, blue sea of pure power. Sunset hits the estate, marking the end of the grueling process. Hans bursts through the door, crying about how long his master has been locked away. The prince turns around with a calm smile, looking more vibrant than ever. The young servant stops in his tracks, barely recognizing him. He checks his chest, feeling the steady, powerful rhythm of his heart. He knows it'll take time and food for his body to catch up to his mana. His heart pulses with a deep blue light as it settles into its new state. Standing tall, he feels his presence finally filling out the room. He realizes he could easily surpass his mercenary prime within just a year. He grabs the boy by the shirt, surprising him with his sudden energy. With a terrifying grin, he tells Hans to gather every coin they have for a big play. His eyes shine with a manic, calculated light that scares the servant. He strikes a dramatic pose, feeling absolutely invincible in his new skin. He laughs to himself, hiding his face behind his hand as he plots his next move. A week later, he heads out into the quiet forest on the edge of the estate. He wanders through the trees with his servant in tow, looking completely relaxed. He leans back with a smug expression, enjoying the fresh air. His room is being cleaned by a fleet of maids while he does whatever he wants. He smirks, playing the role of the spoiled noble to perfection. A close-up of his eye shows the cold intelligence he's hiding behind the mask. Lucian puts on a dark cloak and meets a mysterious figure in a quiet corner of the palace. He heads toward the training grounds, despite the prince's old hatred for the place. The massive stone arches of the hall loom over him in the darkness. He recalls a memory of a bloody blade and a body lying on the cold floor. The fear of violence used to keep the old Lucian locked in his room. He can almost see the shadow of the person who used to stand over him. But this time, the boy is the one looking down with a confident, deadly smile. Lucian enters the grand training hall, accompanied by his servant Hans and a smug knight instructor named Hendrik. Hendrik looks down on the boy, expecting another day of bullying the weak prince. The knight's smirk shows he has no idea that the soul of a veteran mercenary now inhabits this frail body. The third young master stands tall, his gaze sweeping over the vast, empty training ground. The massive space is designed for the most intense movements, but for years, it was only a place of humiliation for him. Hendrik is visibly surprised to see the boy here, looking so sharp and focused. Lucian eyes the man with a cold indifference that's completely new to him. The instructor strokes his mustache, his gaze full of the same arrogance that once drove the original boy to despair. But as he looks closer at the prince's eyes, he feels a strange, unsettling pressure. A memory of the boy trembling with a wooden sword flashes through the man's mind. He used to love watching the useless prince crawl on the floor in fear. But the boy's current, predatory grin is something Hendrik has never seen before. It's the custom for noble blood to master both the sword and the quill from a young age. Only those who prove themselves on the battlefield are truly recognized by the Empire. In the old Lucian's memories, this hall was a nightmare of constant, crushing failure. His gold eyes narrow as he watches Hendrik's sloppy, overconfident stance. The instructor tries to play it cool, completely unaware that he's now being analyzed by a master. Behind him, the shadow of Jordi Valdec seems to loom, a snake-like presence that once controlled the boy. With a sudden, wild laugh, the prince grabs a knife and sends it flying through the air. The blade whizzes past Hendrik's ear, neatly knocking his hat off and pinning it to the wall behind him. The knight can only stand there in total shock, his face turning pale as he realizes how close he just came to death. The boy starts lecturing him about how even a simple movement can grant enlightenment if done correctly. To Hendrik's eyes, a blue glowing figure appears, executing a sword technique with perfect, ancient wisdom. These are the skills of a veteran commander, now being funneled into a youthful body. The instructor looks at him with a mix of suspicion and a growing sense of dread. He tries to regain his composure, telling the prince he should stick to gardening if he's going to be so reckless. But Lucian just looks through him, his presence far more imposing than any knight in the room. Hendrik tries to laugh it off, waving his hand as if he's just witnessed a fluke. Suddenly, the boy starts screaming and clutching his head in a dramatic, over-the-top performance. His voice echoes through the massive, arched stone ceiling of the training hall. He collapses into a heap, making a massive scene while Hans and Hendrik watch in utter confusion. The knight is taken aback, wondering if the useless prince has finally lost his mind. But behind his fake hysterics, the boy is carefully watching the man's every reaction. He smirks internally, knowing he's successfully hidden his true power behind a mask of madness. Hendrik is sweating profusely, unable to tell if the boy is actually dangerous or just insane. Then, the prince puts on his best scared lamb face, crying out about how he could never be a proper knight. He shouts at the top of his lungs, pointing a finger and making sure everyone hears his dramatic apology. The instructor is completely flustered, backing away as the boy's antics become more and more erratic. Lucian pokes him in the chest, telling him in a whisper that he'd better prepare himself for what's coming. The boy's shadow stretches over the man like a giant, dark bird of prey. Hendrik's eyes are wide with a new kind of terror, sensing a monster lurking beneath the surface. He's left standing in the shadows, shaken by the realization that the frail baby lamb is no longer there. A primal predator seems to lurk within the shadows, its glowing eyes watching with a deadly intent. A figure with silver hair emerges into the light of the training hall, his presence commanding immediate attention. Hendrik's face pales as he stammers out the name of the man who has just arrived. Lord Jordi Valdec. Jordi stands tall, his gaze fixed on the scene of the mad prince's outburst. The instructor is completely rattled, sweating profusely as he scrambles to explain himself to the high-ranking noble. With a cold, analytical look, Geordie looms over Hendrik, his expression unreadable but heavy with authority. Lucian immediately shifts back into his frail persona, clutching Hans's arm and trembling as if in terror. But beneath the golden fringe of his hair, a dark, mocking smirk plays on his lips. His performance is perfect. The two brothers face each other in the center of the hall, a stark contrast between the perfect, noble, and the broken third son. Putting on a wide, innocent smile, Lucian offers a formal greeting to his dear older brother. Geordie looks down at him, his eyes searching for any sign of the sharp-tongued boy who just humiliated Hendrik. He remains silent for a moment, a faint, condescending smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. In the background, Hendrik watches with bated breath, hoping the blame doesn't fall on him. Geordie reaches out, patronizingly tapping Lucian on the shoulder as if he were a misbehaving pet. A group of knights stands at a distance, watching the interaction between the two heirs of the Valdec name. Lucian suddenly breaks into sobs again, clutching his head in a display of dramatic distress that leaves everyone baffled. He grips his tie, his face hidden as he plays the part of the mentally unstable brother to the absolute hilt. He lets out a loud histrionic shout, making sure his fragile state is witnessed by everyone in the room. He tells Hans they must record Geordie's precious teachings on the finest silk, a subtle insult disguised as worship. For a brief second, his facade slips, revealing a wide, manic grin that promises a reckoning for those who look down on him. Geordie's composure finally cracks, his face twisting in anger as he realizes he's being mocked. Lucian's golden eyes flash with a momentary, predatory sharpness as he asks a pointed question. For the first time, Geordie feels a genuine chill, his own eye widening as he catches a glimpse of the monster hidden within his brother. Without another word, Lucian cheerfully waves and trots away with a panicked Hans, leaving a fuming Geordie behind in the dust. The servant watches Lucian walk away, noting that the trash third son finally seems to have found some backbone. The annex stands at the end of the path, usually a quiet place for someone forgotten by the family. Lucian keeps a steady pace while Hans follows behind, looking like he's walking to his own execution. The young master mentions Geordie, already seeing through his brother's attempts to keep him isolated. This isn't the first time Jake has dealt with manipulative nobles, having spent a lifetime as a mercenary. He remembers the cold, dark days before his reincarnation when he had nothing but his sword. A sharp grin crosses the protagonist's face as he realizes how much of an advantage his past knowledge gives him. He holds out a hand to Hans, who is currently trembling on the ground. The boy is actually crying, completely overwhelmed by the sudden shift in his master's attitude. The main estate is a massive, glittering fortress, but to Lucian, it's just a nest of vipers. He strides through the ornate hallways with the confidence of someone who owns the place. Lucian's hand tightens around a document as he reads the blatant sabotage written on it. The boy is visibly disgusted by the petty tricks his family is using to try and starve him out. He lets out a shout of pure frustration. Hans screams right back, though his reaction is more about panic than anger. But then, a dark blush and a sly smirk appear on Lucian's face. The budget summary is a direct attack, cutting his funds by 75% while slashing Hans's pay too. He wastes no time and heads straight for the staff quarters to have a little chat. The young master grips the handle and shoves the heavy doors open. A group of maids are lounging inside, clearly not expecting their useless master to show up. Jenny, the head maid, stands up to greet him with a voice dripping with fake politeness. She puts on a big smile while talking down to him like he's some incompetent child. Hans snaps and yells at her for the clear lack of respect she's showing. The woman's expression goes cold the moment Lucian shoves the budget report in her face. She tries to act casual about it, claiming she was just carrying out standard procedures. The protagonist just stands there, looking down at her like she's a particularly annoying bug. He gives her a look that says he knows exactly who she's spying for. The other servants in the room exchange nervous glances, realizing the atmosphere has completely shifted. He just lets out a small laugh, knowing exactly how to handle this type of rot. Hans looks back and forth between them, terrified of the confrontation brewing in the room. Later that night, the setting shifts to the grimy, moonlit streets of the lower district. Two cloaked figures enter a nondescript building to keep their business off the books. It's an underground gambling den, packed with people looking to lose their shirts on a fight. Two heavy hitters are brawling in a ring while the crowd screams for blood. Lucian pulls his hood back and approaches the counter to find the man in charge. He remembers why he hasn't killed Jenny yet. She's just a symptom of a much bigger problem. He thinks about the nanny who raised Geordie, realizing the web of betrayal goes back years. The protagonist takes a calm sip of his drink while the chaos of the fighting pit roars behind him. He settles into a chair, looking completely comfortable in this den of criminals. He places a stack of cards on the table, ready to start the real game. Lucian fans out his deck, prepared to use his mercenary wits to clean these guys out. He reveals the winning card with a sinister grin. He's here to recruit some muscle, and he won't take no for an answer. The chips are piling up on the table, a fortune growing by the second. Lucian is absolutely cleaning house, sitting across from a man who is clearly starting to feel the pressure. Hans is losing his mind in the background, unable to process how his master became a card shark overnight. The young master leans back with a yawn, looking like he's already bored with winning. The stacks of chips are so high they're practically a barricade between him and his opponent. The heavy doors of the gambling den stand open, the sounds of the brawl outside leaking into the private room. He watches the man across from him with a look of casual superiority. A slow, sharp smirk stretches across the protagonist's face. Hugo finally stands up, his shadow looming over the table while Hans cowers in fear. Lucian makes his move, his presence commanding the room despite his age. He stays perfectly relaxed while the underworld boss stares him down. Hugo admits that the young lord's skill is truly astonishing, unable to hide his growing respect. The man asks if the boy really did all this himself, his suspicion growing. A flash of recognition glints in the boss's eyes as he senses something dangerous about this kid. Hans is literally crying at this point, begging his master to just take the money and leave. Hugo's gaze turns predatory, his red eyes glowing with a murderous intent. A memory of past blood and violence flashes through the air, hinting at the man's brutal history. This isn't just a gambler. He's a predator who has walked through hell to reach the top. In the future, this man is destined to become the king of the night, ruling the underworld of 5 territories. He's a legend in the making, the kind of powerhouse that most people would never dare to challenge. Lucian knows the guy is still just a rookie for now, but he's already plenty dangerous. Another set of cards is dealt out for the final showdown. The dealer stands frozen between them, feeling the killing intent radiating from the table. The young master just laughs, looking like he's having the time of his life while Hans panics. Hugo stares at his hand, his face a mask of concentration as he tries to find a way out. A card hits the table. It couldn't have come at a better time for the protagonist's plan. The boss's expression hardens, realizing he might have finally met his match. A savage grin spreads across the man's face as he thinks he's finally cornered his opponent. Lucian just laughs it off, acting like he's completely lost track of the game. He flashes a bright, innocent-looking smile that hides the cold calculation in his eyes. Hugo thinks about his place in the world, trying to maintain his composure while dealing with this unpredictable brat. The boy shuffles the cards with a casual flick of his wrist. The two are locked in a battle of wits that goes far beyond a simple hand of cards. Hans lets out another panicked shout, convinced that they're about to get murdered. Hugo leans in, his scarred face looking even more menacing in the dim light. One final bet is tossed into the pile, settling the stakes. Lucian lets out a genuine laugh, enjoying the thrill of outmaneuvering a future underworld king. The entire room seems to hold its breath as the final cards are revealed. He drops a joker on the table, the ultimate sign that he's the worst possible opponent for the family that betrayed him. He recalls the legend of a man who once led a group of dangerous outlaws before vanishing. Back then, the guy was a ghost who had already fled the city to stay one step ahead of his enemies. But today, that legend is sitting right across from him, ready to be put to work. Hugo is completely blindsided as Lucian mentions his illegal drug trade. Beads of sweat roll down the man's face as the weight of the accusation hits him. Hugo's hand begins to shake violently, his confidence completely shattered by the teenager's words. He considers if he should try to kill the boy right here to keep his secret safe. The man's fingers twitch toward the hidden weapon at his side, the temptation of violence clawing at him. Hugo keeps a hand on the dagger concealed behind his back, ready to strike if the conversation goes south. Lucian gives him a shark-like grin, knowing exactly what the man is thinking while Hans screams in the background. The underworld boss's hand trembles even more as he realizes he's being toyed with. Sweat pours off Hugo's jaw as the pressure in the room becomes suffocating. A horrific memory flashes through Hugo's mind. He was once a subject of human experiments, strapped down and bloodied. He squeezes his eyes shut, trying to block out the phantom pain of the restraints and the needles. Back in the present, he slumps forward, his spirit broken by the reminder of his past torment. The massive man falls to his knees before the young master, suddenly looking like a beaten dog. Hugo lets out a desperate cry, realizing that this boy holds his entire future in his hands. Around them, the other thugs in the den drop to the floor and beg for their lives to be spared. Lucian reaches out and casually taps a stack of red chips, as if he's just deciding on his next bet. He settles back into his chair, the image of a true commander asserting his dominance over the room. The protagonist leans forward, invading the man's personal space with a look of terrifying clarity. He places a hand on the massive man's shoulder, a gesture that feels more like a threat than a comfort. Hugo's eye widens in pure terror, his pupils dilating as he stares at the golden-eyed youth. In his mind's eye, the boss sees a vision of a powerful warrior, the true self Lucian sees in him. A sudden shock of mana or pure intent ripples through the air like a spray of dark blood. Lucian tosses a heavy bag of gold onto the floor in front of the kneeling Hugo. Hugo slams his head against the wooden planks in a deep bow, surrendering his pride and his service. The young master's gaze is cold and sharp, his golden eyes reflecting a plan that is only just beginning. He stands up with a grand gesture, signaling the end of the meeting and his victory over the gambling den. The scene shifts to the magnificent and imposing Valdec estate, bathed in the morning light. Back in his luxurious study, Lucian lounges with his feet on the desk, ignoring the nervous whispers of the maids. He stretches out comfortably, acting like the spoiled, arrogant noble everyone expects him to be. Clasped behind his head, his hands show a level of relaxation that his terrified servants can't comprehend. "Bring the head maid here," he commands with a dangerous glint in his eyes. He remembers how Jenny, the head maid with the red braids, used to look down on him with a smug smile. Lucian watches the door, noting that the servant's behavior is exactly as predictable and treacherous as he expected. To the staff, Lucian is still just a rotten rope, a failing master who isn't worth their respect. Edwin, the silver-haired butler, stands before the desk and waits for the young master's next unpredictable move. Hans is on the verge of tears again, pleading with the other servants to be understanding of the master's whims. "We just want to live quietly like before," the servant cries out, his face twisted with anxiety. Hans loses his composure and shouts at Lucian, begging him to stop causing trouble for them all. A man enters the room and bows deeply. It's Hugo, now cleaned up and wearing the clothes of a guard. The former underworld boss looks remarkably different with his hair styled, though his red eyes remain intense. He kneels formally on the ornate floor of the study, requesting the young master's permission to enter his service. Lucian reaches out and pats the man's shoulder, welcoming his new recruit to the Valdec estate. Lucian leans in, his face shadowed with a sinister grin as he tells Hugo to give the household staff a hell of a show. Standing in the center of the office, the massive new recruit prepares to show the servants who's really in charge. From his seat at the desk, the young master watches as Hugo towers over the room like an unstoppable wall of muscle. One of the staff members attempts to act tough, clearly failing to grasp the danger he is in. Hugo's massive fist tightens until the leather of his gloves creaks, his patience for the arrogant servant at an end. The man's expression quickly turns to one of pure terror as he realizes he's made a fatal mistake. Without a moment's hesitation, Hugo delivers a devastating punch that sends the man's head snapping back. The sheer force of the impact creates a blur of motion, leaving the other servants paralyzed with fear. Like a discarded ragdoll, the man is sent sailing across the luxurious office, crashing into the ornate wall. While Hans looks on in absolute horror, Lucian mockingly enjoys the spectacle with a pair of dark shades and a smug grin. Hugo stands motionless over the fallen man, his presence alone enough to silence any further thoughts of rebellion. The unconscious servant lies crumpled on the floor, a bloody reminder of the new order within the Valdec estate. The remaining staff members are forced to witness the consequences of defying their master's authority. Hugo wears a dark, predatory smile as he reveals his particular talent for educating crazy bastards. Moments later, guards drag Jenny into the room, the once proud head maid now reduced to a struggling captive. "Shut your mouth and just follow us," one of the guards barks, pushing her toward the center of the office. Jenny glares up with a face full of resentment, her red braids disheveled and her ego severely bruised. The office is now a scene of absolute submission, with the household servants kneeling low before the third son. Jenny is forced onto her knees by the guards, though her spirit remains defiant as she glares at Lucian. Lucian gestures dismissively, reminding the captured maid that he was the one who ordered her to be brought here. The head maid spits out words of rage, refusing to acknowledge the power shift that has occurred in the house. Jenny screeches that she isn't scared of him, her voice echoing through the silent, tension-filled room. Lucian simply smiles, asking mockingly whoever said the show was concluding so soon. He slowly reaches for a disciplinary rod, preparing to personally handle the education of the traitorous head maid. Lucian walks into the room, casually carrying a whip while the maid, Jenny, watches him with a mix of shock and confusion. She isn't just scared. She's sweating bullets, realizing that the trash she used to bully isn't acting like himself. Lucian gives her a look that says he's done playing games. He grips the whip tight. It's clear he didn't bring it just for show. Before she can even react, she's grabbed. The other servants pin her down as Lucian looms over her, completely in control of the room. Jenny tries to maintain some dignity, but the fear in her eyes is hard to hide. Lucian asks if she really thought her little games would go unnoticed forever. He leans in, mockingly asking if she thinks Geordie is actually going to come save her from this. He points out that if the Duke finds out what she's been up to, even Geordie won't be able to protect her. He wears a chilling smile, enjoying the fact that he's completely dismantled her sense of security. The realization hits her hard. She's totally trapped. Lucian reminds her that in this house, hierarchy is everything, and she's at the very bottom. His silhouette towers over her, casting a shadow that swallows her whole. The guards aren't being gentle, making sure she can't move an inch. The bravado finally breaks. Jenny starts sobbing, begging for mercy. But Lucian isn't looking for apologies. He raises the whip. A sharp crack echoes through the hall as he delivers the first strike. Outside, the estate looks as peaceful as ever, completely hiding the chaos happening inside. Word finally reaches Geordie, who comes charging through the mansion to stop the madness. He can't believe his useless brother is actually causing this much of a scene. He storms toward the room, shouting at the guards for letting things get this far. But when he bursts in, he stops dead. The scene isn't what he expected. He brought his own muscle, thinking he could just steamroll over Lucian. He glares at his brother, his face twisted in a mix of rage and disbelief. The tension in the air is thick enough to choke on. Lucian stands there calmly, whip in hand, with Jenny bleeding on the floor behind him. Geordie's jaw drops. He's never seen this side of Lucian before. Lucian doesn't even look at him, simply ordering Hugo to get the maid back on her feet. Furious, Geordie orders his personal guards, Oliver and Gert, to step in and take her back. They lunge forward, thinking they can easily handle the trash prince. Lucian doesn't even flinch. He just watches them come. Suddenly, Hugo pulls a dagger and holds it right to Jenny's throat, halting the guards in their tracks. One more step and it's over for her. The message is loud and clear. Jenny screams for Geordie to save her, her face a mask of pure terror. Geordie freezes, his hand outstretched, realizing he's just lost his leverage. Hugo stands like a stone wall, his grip on the knife unwavering. He stares them down with eyes that have seen far too much blood to be intimidated by a couple of house guards. It's a complete standoff, and for the first time, Geordie realizes he's not the one in charge here. Lucian wipes a splash of blood off his face, looking completely unfazed by the threat of violence. Geordie is absolutely fuming, but he knows he can't make a move without getting his favorite spy killed. This wasn't just a punishment. It was a declaration of war against the second son, Geordie Valdec. Geordie watches as Lucian walks away, feeling a chill down his spine from the intensity his brother is radiating. He knows he's just suffered a massive blow after being forced to cast aside his most trusted knight, Sir Hendrik. If he can't find a way to protect Jenny now, his own reputation in the house will be in tatters. Geordie clenches his fist, but the weight of his brother's presence makes it hard to even look him in the eye. He's desperate to keep his composure, but his hands won't stop shaking. The two brothers stand in the hall, a vast gulf now separating the trash Geordie once knew from the predator standing before him. Hugo keeps the pressure on Jenny, making sure she knows exactly who's in charge of her life now. Lucian looks at the noble posturing around him and can't help but find it pathetic. He shrugs it off, finding the whole honorable noble act to be nothing more than a bad joke. He addresses his respected brother with a voice dripping with sarcasm, mockingly acknowledging Geordie's earnest plea. He tells Geordie straight to his face that he simply lacks any justification to stop what's about to happen. Tired of the political dancing, he tells Geordie to cut the talk and start speaking plainly for once. Jenny looks on in terror as she realizes she's just a pawn in a game far bigger than her petty bullying. Lucian lays out the price for her freedom. Geordie has to cough up several times the amount she stole. Geordie is fuming, his teeth gritted in pure rage as he realizes he's been completely outmaneuvered. Lucian can't help but laugh at the thought of all that gold, money he'll use to fund his own path to power. The Valdec mansion stands tall, but the power structure inside its walls is shifting faster than anyone expected. Later, Grand Duke Sigmund Valdec sits in his study, having heard the news of the chaos his third son caused. He reads over the official reports, his expression unreadable as he considers the implications of Lucian's actions. He's looking for something specific, a spark of talent that could change the fate of their family. He stares out the window, deep in thought about which of his sons actually has what it takes to survive the coming wars. The heavy doors to the study finally creak open, signaling the arrival of the person he's been waiting for. Lucian enters, his posture straight and his gaze steady, a world away from the weak, wandering eyes he used to have. He stands before his father, the most powerful man in the territory, without showing even a hint of fear. Sigmund watches him closely, his golden eyes scanning for any sign of the old, useless Lucian. The room is dead silent as the father and son face each other, the tension thick enough to choke on. Lucian lets out a sharp exhale, sensing the scrutiny but refusing to back down an inch. He asks his father what could be so urgent, acting as if he didn't just turn the entire estate upside down. Suddenly, Geordie bursts in, his face red with anger as he demands to know why Lucian is being treated like a legitimate candidate. Lucian just gives a small smirk, acting like Geordie's outburst is nothing more than a mild annoyance. Sigmund remains seated, his silent presence commanding more respect than all of Geordie's shouting combined. Lucian knows exactly what his father is testing. He wants a reason to take his third son seriously. He reaches into his tunic and pulls out a folded document, prepared for this exact moment. Sigmund looks up, clearly surprised that Lucian actually has something substantial to present. Lucian slams the document on the desk, revealing his move, a detailed report on drug smuggling in their territory. The Grand Duke looks over the intel, realizing his son hasn't just been playing around. He's been doing real work. He sees the names and dates, all pointing to House Logren's illegal activities within the Valdec borders. Sigmund is genuinely impressed by the depth of the research and the boldness it took to bring it to him. He looks at the report, then back at his son, seeing a potential successor where he used to see only failure. Lucian doesn't look away, meeting his father's gaze with the unwavering resolve of a man who knows his worth. Suddenly, a surge of mana fills the room as Sigmund unleashes a wave of pressure to truly test his son's soul. He cloaks himself in a dark aura, letting his power flow to see if Lucian will buckle under the weight of a Grand Duke's presence. After the intense pressure subsides, Lucian remains steady, asking his father if he might dare to speak one more word. Grand Duke Sigmund watches his third son from behind his massive desk, his gaze weighing the transformation he's witnessing. Hugo, the scarred warrior, stays kneeling on the hardwood floor, sensing the monumental shift in power occurring in the room. Sigmund looks at Lucian, seeing a shadow of potential that had been buried under years of trash behavior. He taps his finger thoughtfully on the desk, considering the strategic report his son just delivered. Lucian places a hand on his chest, speaking with a level of confidence and clarity that leaves no room for doubt. Sigmund observes that human nature cannot be defied, seemingly testing whether this change is truly permanent. A sharp, knowing smirk plays across Lucian's lips as he hears his father's cynical worldview. He repeats his father's word back to him, asking if desire is really all that he sees in his eyes. Hugo looks up from his position on the floor, his own resolve hardening as he watches the scene unfold. He starts to see a path forward, a chance to follow a man who will carve his name into history. The office is filled with a heavy silence as the Grand Duke processes his son's defiance. Lucian smiles broadly, declaring his intent to believe in that very dream of greatness. Sigmund rests his chin on his hand, his eyes narrowed as he tries to find a flaw in the young man standing before him. In Lucian's golden eyes, there is only unwavering resolve and the cold calculation of a veteran. The meeting concludes, leaving the Grand Duke to ponder the future of House Valdek. Sigmund watches his son leave, his expression a complex mix of surprise and newfound expectation. As night falls over Kelheim, the Grand Mansion is silhouetted against a star-studded sky. Later that evening, Sigmund stands in the library, his formal robes replaced by a simple one as he pores over a book. Edwin, his loyal butler, reports that he failed to prevent the corruption from festering right under their noses in the capital. Sigmund turns to face his aide, reminding Edwin that he was the one who diverted his attention to the border issues. Edwin bows his head, his face illuminated by the moonlight as he accepts his master's words. The Duke looks weary from the day's revelations, yet there is a sense of purpose in his eyes. He knows the road ahead will be difficult, but he is no longer facing it with only disappointment in his airs. Outside, Hugo stands alone in the shadows, having recognized Lucian as a liege lord worth staking his life on. The library remains a sanctuary for the Duke as he discusses the delicate political balance with his trusted advisor. Across the territory, a beam of brilliant light pierces the night, signaling a shift in the world's mana. Swirling blue energy illuminates the trees, gathered around a power that has long been dormant. Deep in the forest, Eisenbreitner, a man of legendary skill, sits in quiet meditation, surrounded by an aura of blue light. The night is peaceful, but the events of the day have set something unstoppable in motion. Inside the mansion, a sudden shout of disbelief echoes through the hallways. Hans, the orange-haired servant, looks completely flabbergasted, his eyes watering from the sheer shock of the news. Lucian just smirks and pinches the boy's cheek, finding his dramatic reaction to the situation hilarious. Hans immediately drops to his knees and hugs Lucian's leg, wailing with a mix of joy and relief while Hugo watches from behind. Hugo steps forward and tells the boy to calm down, though he can't help but feel the weight of the moment as well. The scarred warrior looks at the young servant with a stoic expression, his loyalty already firmly placed. Hans looks up, his face red with effort as he questions if he really just became a right-hand man. A wide, toothy grin spreads across his face as the reality of his new position finally starts to sink in. He tries to act humble, crossing his arms and shrugging, while Hugo looks on with a silent, knowing smirk. Hugo playfully hoists the small boy up into the air, while Hans jokingly calls him the left-hand man in return. Lucian crosses his arms and smiles, telling Hans that Hugo's assessment of his value isn't wrong. Moved to tears once more, Hans promises in his heart that he will always be there for his master. Lucian watches Hugo walk away, his mind already formulating the role the warrior will play in the coming storm. He reflects that there is absolutely no reason to doubt the man's latent abilities as a combatant. To Lucian's experienced eyes, Hugo has the potential to become a legendary knight, a pillar of strength for House Valdek. Standing together under the twilight sky, Lucian, Hugo, and Hans form a foundation of loyalty that didn't exist for the old Lucian. Lucian gives his final instructions for the night, his voice steady and his gaze focused on the horizon. Later, the sound of measured footsteps echoes through the quiet hallways of the estate's training hall. Lucian stands in the center of the vast, ornate chamber, preparing himself for the next step in his growth. He takes a deep breath and closes his eyes, centering his thoughts and grounding his mana. Memories of a different life begin to surface, a life of biting cold and desperate, unending struggle. He remembers himself as Jake, a mere mercenary sitting by a lonely campfire in a frozen, desolate wilderness. Back then, the idea of learning advanced sword forms was nothing more than a distant, impossible dream for someone of his status. In those days, even the most basic manuals were precious treasures, guarded by the powerful and the privileged. He had spent countless nights studying whatever scraps of knowledge he could scavenge by the dim light of a candle. For a commoner like him, even a single chance to glimpse a true sword form was something worth risking everything for. He had lived by the blade, standing amidst the blood and dust of countless battlefields just to earn his place in the world. The memory of his own blood on his hands serves as a reminder of the price he had paid for every ounce of his current skill. Now, in this new life, Lucian clenches his fist, feeling the vast potential coursing through his noble body. His golden eyes snap open, burning with the knowledge of a veteran and the hunger for a power he never had before. He wonders just how incredible the legendary swordsmanship of House Valdek will be once he truly begins his training. The Grand Hall is silent, a perfect sanctuary for the mental preparation he requires before the lesson begins. Lucian decides it is best to calm his mind and circulate his mana one last time before his instructor arrives. He settles into a meditative pose on the patterned carpet, his internal focus turning as sharp as his blade. From above, he looks like a steady and resolute flame burning in the very heart of the grand estate. Suddenly, a large, imposing shadow stretches across the floor, signaling the arrival of the master who will guide his new path. Lucian Valdeck sits in the center of the hall, focusing his mind and getting into a deep meditative state. Eisen Breitner, the old servant who's secretly a legend, watches him closely from a distance. He heads up to the balcony to have a drink with Grand Duke Sigmund. Sigmund is definitely interested in whatever's gotten into his third son lately. The Sword Saint takes a sip, noting that the kid's aura has shifted completely. They agree to see if this new talent is the real deal or just some fluke. Eisen tells the boy he'll understand exactly what he means once they start. The old master stands tall on the balcony, his presence filling the grand training hall. Lucian looks up, realizing he's face to face with a living legend. He can't believe the simple servant he knew was actually a world-class warrior. Eisen drops the facade, his sharp eyes pinning Lucian in place. He bows slightly, finally acknowledging Lucian as his new student. The two of them stand alone in the massive, sunlit hall as the lesson begins. Lucian bows deeply, knowing what an honor it is to receive teachings from a sword saint. Eisen just laughs it off, claiming he's just an old man with an undeserved title. He doesn't waste any time and gets right to the physical work. He tells Lucian to start by running laps around the outdoor training grounds. Without a word of complaint, the boy turns and takes off at a dash. His boots hammer against the floor as he picks up serious speed. He pushes himself, determined to show the master he's not afraid of hard work. Eisen watches from the sidelines, looking a bit surprised by the immediate hustle. Lucian pauses for a second, checking back with his new teacher. The old man notes that his gaze is way sharper than any of his brothers. Then, Lucian bursts forward again with even more intensity. He starts circling the huge courtyard, a lone figure in the morning sun. His focus is absolute and he doesn't slow down for a second. Each stride is perfectly balanced, showing incredible control for his age. Down by the stables, the commotion catches the attention of the staff. Hugo, his aide, watches his master with a pretty skeptical expression. The other servants are just as stunned to see the trash son training this hard. Lucian leans into the turn, his hair whipping back as he picks up the pace. He checks his surroundings, making sure he's maintaining his form. There's a cold, calculated fire in his eyes that Eisen can't ignore. After a while, Lucian realizes he's not feeling tired at all. In fact, he feels like he could keep running laps for hours. He blurs past the pillars, leaving nothing but dust in his wake. Eisen is baffled. This level of stamina just doesn't make any sense. He sees that the boy's breathing remains as calm as a still lake. The master steps down into the yard, his own aura beginning to stir. He calls out, telling Lucian to bring the running to an end. Eisen stands firm, curious about how the boy is already utilizing mana. He asks about the meditation from this morning, realizing Lucian is using it to calm his entire vessel. Eisen tells Lucian he's going to examine his physical condition and steps closer. He grabs the boy's hand, and a surge of blue mana flows between them. The old master's eyes narrow as he feels something completely unexpected. A vision of a massive waterfall appears, a representation of the pure mana circulating through Lucian's body. Eisen is still holding on to him, completely lost in his thoughts about the boy's potential. He finally lets go, the surge of energy dissipating into the air around them. He explains that what he just felt is a state close to absolute perfection. It's a stage of mana circulation that only a tiny minority of martial artists ever reach. Lucian had anticipated this to some extent, but hearing it from the Sword Saint makes it real. He remembers the many questions he had about his body's condition after the transformation. It's a shock to realize just how much he's changed in such a short time. Eisen tells him that this is a problem no one else can help him answer. Lucian stands silently, waiting for the master to finish his assessment. The tension in the air is thick as Eisen prepares to make a major proposal. He drops a bombshell, telling Lucian he needs to give up his position as a successor. Lucian starts to panic, thinking there's something horribly wrong with his body or his mana. But Eisen clarifies, if he focuses entirely on the sword, he could become a legend. The boy's eyes go wide as he processes the weight of that offer. He thinks about the possibility of finally learning the ancient Lionheart sword technique. It's a legendary form that supposedly lets you move mountains. A hand grips the edge of a cliff, symbolizing the uphill battle he's been fighting. The idea of reaching the peak of martial arts is incredibly tempting. Like an eagle soaring over the peaks, he'd be untouchable by common men. He asks if the choice is really that binary successor or sword saint. Eisen confirms it, his expression turning solemn. He explains that to reach the absolute top, one simply doesn't have enough time for politics. Lucian looks down at his hand, weighing his ambition against his newfound power. He looks at a vision of the future, a world filled with war and turbulent times. He clenches his fist, knowing that the sword alone won't be enough to protect what he cares about. They stand in the silent hall as Lucian prepares his final answer. He looks Eisen in the eye and says he simply cannot accept the offer. The sword saint is genuinely taken aback by the boy's refusal. Outside, the estate remains quiet, oblivious to the massive decision just made. Suddenly, the sound of galloping hooves breaks the silence. Joshua Valdek, the fourth son, comes charging onto the grounds on horseback. He pulls the reins tight as he approaches one of the staff members. He looks down from his horse, demanding to know what's been going on while he was away. The servant tells him some ridiculous stories about his brother's sudden rise. Joshua's face twists in rage at the thought of the trash actually improving. He leaps off his horse, his feet hitting the ground with an aggressive thud. He demands a confirmation, his arrogance radiating from every move he makes. The servant confirms it. Lucian is officially receiving swordsmanship training from the master. Joshua Valdek is absolutely livid, his face flushing red as he screams in disbelief. His eyes are wide and wild, unable to process the news that his trash brother is receiving special treatment. He grabs the servant by the collar, shaking him violently while demanding more details. He yells that his own standing might be threatened if Lucian actually manages to improve his skills. The boy bites down on his glove, his frustration reaching a boiling point as he considers the implications. He turns his back on the servant, already thinking about how he can test his brother's new training. Joshua stands by his horse, his initial rage cooling into a more calculated and dangerous focus. A dark, predatory smirk spreads across his face as he plans his next move. In the Grand Hall, Lucian stands before Eisen Breitner, now dressed in his maroon training attire. Lucian speaks with a heavy heart, acknowledging the long and difficult road that lies ahead of him. He feels the weight of his family's expectations and his own ambitions pressing down on him. Eisen thanks him for his honesty, his respect for the young master growing with every word. The old master watches the boy closely, sensing the hidden fire burning within him. Lucian looks down, his expression unreadable as he prepares for the grueling path he has chosen. A sharp, confident smirk flashes across his lips, showing that he is more than ready for the challenge. A vision of a snowy battlefield appears, showing the true potential of the warrior Lucian could become. A blade glows with a lethal purple mana, cutting through the freezing air with terrifying precision. The dark-haired warrior moves like a ghost through the snow, engaging multiple armored foes at once. With a single lightning-fast stroke, he decapitates an enemy, a spray of blood staining the white ground. More soldiers fall in an instant, unable to even react to the speed of his strikes. The warrior stands amidst the carnage, his presence cold and absolute in the center of the storm. He stands alone as a conqueror, the blood of his enemies the only color in the frozen wasteland. The sheer weight of his aura is enough to crush the spirit of any who would dare to oppose him. Back in the present, Eisen and Lucian look up at the infinite stars, the master certain that the boy will be his greatest student. The next day, Lucian begins his basic training with a wooden sword, focusing on the fundamentals under Eisen's watchful eye. Eisen stands ready to guide him, knowing that the journey to becoming a legend has finally begun. Eisen tells Lucian that if he's actually been working on his mana circulation, he should be able to move it through his body by now. Lucian tightens his grip on the wooden sword, preparing to show what he's capable of. He starts the form, swinging the wood through the air with everything he's got. His focus sharpens, and the world around him starts to blur as he zeroes in on his target. The first strike connects with the training dummy with a solid thud. He shifts his weight and follows up with a heavy horizontal strike. The blade whistles through the air as he keeps the momentum going, never breaking his rhythm. He moves into the final part of the sequence, pouring his concentration into the blade. Suddenly, a faint blue light begins to wrap around the wooden sword. Lucian's eyes narrow as he taps into the mana flowing through his veins, his past life's instincts guiding him. The impact sends the armor on the dummy rattling violently against the frame. He doesn't stop there, unleashing a blur of strikes that whistle through the training hall. He finally pulls back, breathing hard as he tries to steady his heart rate. Eisen slowly walks over, watching the boy with a neutral expression. The old man rests his hands on his wooden sword, looking like he hasn't even broken a sweat. Lucian looks up, waiting to see what the old servant thinks of his performance. He knows he's still getting used to this body, but he's pushing it to the absolute limit. A single drop of sweat rolls down his face as the silence hangs heavy in the air. Before he can even blink, Eisen is in his face, a wooden sword hovering inches from his throat. The old man's gaze is cold and sharp, completely different from his usual servant persona. Lucian freezes, the realization of the massive power gap hitting him like a physical blow. For a split second, he sees a vision of his own blood hitting the floor from a lethal strike. He realizes that if that had been a real blade, his head would have been gone before he even felt it. The speed was incredible. It was like Eisen simply vanished and reappeared behind him. Lucian lets out a breath, realizing how far he still has to go to survive in this world. Behind him, a piece of the training armor finally falls off and hits the floor with a clatter. Eisen steps back, giving the kid a moment to pull himself together. He explains that to tap into the true power of a sword, mana is only one piece of the puzzle. He demonstrates a strike of his own, his mana flaring a vibrant, intense green. The dummy is hit with such force that the air itself seems to buckle around it. They start the spar again, the loud cracks of wood on wood echoing through the stone room. Lucian pushes himself to the limit, trying to track the old man's insane movements. But every time he thinks he's found a gap, Aizen is already 5 steps ahead. Lucian's arms are starting to go numb from the constant vibrations of the blocks. The old man just bats his attacks away like they're nothing more than a nuisance. Aizen's eyes remain perfectly calm, analyzing every single flaw in Lucian's form. Lucian goes for a desperate jumping strike, but Aizen just pivots on his heel. A quick shove sends the boy flying back across the open room. He hits the ground hard, his body bruised and exhausted from the relentless training. But he doesn't stay down, dragging himself back up and raising his sword once more. He's not going to let a little pain stop him from reaching the top this time around. Aizen holds his glowing blade at the ready, looking pleased that the boy hasn't given up yet. Aizen steps into a fighting stance, his wooden sword glowing with a sharp green light as he prepares to test the boy's progress. He watches Lucian closely, waiting for the perfect moment to strike and see if his student's focus holds. Without warning, the old man lunges forward, his mana flaring around the training blade with incredible intensity. Lucian's eyes narrow as he tracks the incoming strike, his past life mercenary instincts kicking in automatically. The green-tinted wood hums as it slices through the air toward him, far faster than any normal servant should move. He grits his teeth, bracing himself for the impact while trying to find a gap in the master's defense. Lucian's own wooden sword erupts with a cool blue mana as he meets the challenge head-on. They collide with a massive burst of energy, sending a shockwave rippling through the massive training hall. Sweat drips down his face, but he doesn't let his focus waver for even a second under the pressure. Aizen's gaze is piercing, his eyes glowing with the raw power of a man who has mastered the sword. The blue and green mana clash in the center, neither side willing to give an inch of ground. Despite the chaotic energy between them, the old man remains perfectly composed and silent. The training swords groan under the immense pressure as the two competing forces struggle for dominance. Lucian finally staggers back, his mana fading as his lungs burn for oxygen. Aizen lowers his sword and gives a small, approving nod, finally breaking the tension with a smile. The boy collapses to the floor, his body feeling like it's been put through a meat grinder from the intensity. He leans back against his hand, his heart hammering against his ribs as he tries to regain his composure. The training hall falls quiet as the two of them take a moment to recover from the fierce exchange. Nearby, other servants and guards continue their duties, trying their best to ignore the terrifying display of power. One of the workers pauses, whispering his surprise at the sheer level of training the third son is undergoing. Lucian looks down at his trembling hands, the physical toll of the session finally catching up with him. He realizes that if he wants to fix his sloppy combat habits, this kind of hellish work is the only way. He examines the rough wood of his sword, noticing how quickly he's starting to get the hang of these new forms. After a short break, they settle into a moment of quiet meditation to stabilize their circulating mana. Aizen provides precise instructions, guiding Lucian's internal energy with the wisdom of a master. The old man's presence is like a calm sea, his mana radiating a peaceful but undeniably powerful aura. Lucian can feel the growth within himself, his body beginning to move with a grace he never had in his first life. He realizes that true strength was always within his reach. He just needed the right person to draw it out. He runs a hand over his notched training sword, reflecting on the lessons hidden inside the rough wood. He grips the handle with a newfound sense of purpose, determined to master everything Aizen has to teach. Suddenly, the heavy doors burst open, and a figure in polished armor strides in through a thick cloud of dust. It's Joshua Valdek, the arrogant fourth son, and he looks like he's looking for a fight. He stands tall with his blue cape fluttering behind him, surveying the room with a condescending sneer. Joshua looks down at Lucian with nothing but pure contempt, his eyes narrowing as he approaches. Lucian just smirks back, his own gaze turning cold as he prepares to deal with his annoying brother. Joshua doesn't waste any time, drawing his weapon and lunging forward with a sudden, aggressive attack. Their blades meet with a sharp metallic ring, the clear gap in their temperaments showing in their eyes. Lucian manages to deflect the blow, but the sheer force of it sends him sliding back across the stone floor. Joshua turns his back as if he's already won, the picture of overconfident arrogance. He starts bragging to the bystanders, completely underestimating the brother he used to bully without mercy. A cruel smile plays on Joshua's lips as he imagines the public humiliation he's about to dish out. But Lucian isn't finished yet, watching his brother's every move with a calculating, predatory gaze. Joshua Valdek leans in with a smug, self-satisfied grin, clearly enjoying his own perceived superiority. Below his gaze, Lucian's hand tightens around the hilt of his training sword, his fingers itching for the coming clash. A dark, predatory smile tugs at Lucian's lips, his gaze turning sharp with a shadow of his past life's lethality. Joshua stands tall before Aizen, his posture oozing with an unearned and irritating confidence. He laughs dismissively, shrugging his shoulders as if the entire situation is merely a game he's already won. As Joshua turns to face him, Lucian stands motionless, his eyes fixed on his brother with an unsettling, steady focus. Joshua puts on a show of mock politeness, claiming he simply couldn't wait to find Aizen and his brother. Lucian remains quiet, his back to the others as he listens to Joshua's arrogant and hollow posturing. In the half-light, a chilling, silent smirk spreads across Lucian's face, as he realizes the opportunity before him. He turns his head slightly, his golden eyes cold and calculating as they lock onto his younger brother. Joshua's smug expression deepens as he suggests they spar under the guise of helping his older brother. Lucian just watches the spectacle, his expression an unreadable mask of calm that belies his inner intent. The three men stand in the vast training hall, the heavy silence between the two brothers filling the air. Lucian touches his chin thoughtfully, a hint of genuine amusement flickering in his intense gaze. Joshua bursts into a fit of arrogant laughter, relishing the thought of putting Lucian in his place once again. Lucian keeps his head bowed slightly, playing the role of the submissive sibling for just a moment longer. Aizen stands between them like a silent judge, his eyes moving back and forth between the siblings. Finally, Aizen speaks, granting permission for the duel so long as both of them truly wish to proceed. The Master makes it clear that he will stop the match the instant he judges it to be genuinely dangerous. Both brothers acknowledge the warning, striking a formal pose that signals the start of their engagement. But Lucian's wide, toothy grin is anything but formal. It's the look of a wolf who has finally cornered its prey. Joshua laughs at the challenge, his face twisted with malice as he accepts the terms of the match. They move to their positions in the center of the hall, the cracked stone floor under their feet a testament to past battles. Joshua looks back with a sharp, arrogant glance, reminding Lucian that he was the first to pick up a blade. The two brothers face off across the training ring, the air thick with their mutual hostility. Aizen gives the command, telling them to draw their swords and signal the beginning of the contest. Simultaneously, they reach for their hilts, the sound of steel against leather echoing through the high-ceilinged room. Joshua takes a deliberate, heavy step forward, his eyes burning with the desire to humiliate his brother. He grips his sword tightly, his jaw set in a hard line as his overconfidence begins to turn into frantic tension. The leather creaks under his palm, the physical manifestation of the immense pressure he's putting on himself to win. Lucian's eye is caught in a flash of red and shadow, his focus narrowing down to the single point of the duel. He slowly draws his blade, his movements fluid and natural, exactly as the sword saint has taught him. Standing ready, he holds his sword with an effortless grace that makes him look like a completely different person. For a fleeting moment, the memory of his past self, the cold-blooded Jake, surfaces in his mind's eye. He suppresses the bloodlust with a sharp, cold smile, focusing entirely on the brother standing before him. Aizen watches from the sidelines with his arms folded, his sharp eyes missing nothing of the brothers' stances. They begin to walk toward each other, their rhythmic steps the only sound in the tense, silent hall. Joshua's smirk returns, his misplaced confidence resurfacing as he thinks about how easy this victory will be. He laughs to himself, already savoring the look of defeat he expects to see on Lucian's face. But then he catches a glimpse of the predatory focus in his brother's eyes, and his smirk falters. Lucian's grin widens as he agrees that this duel is exactly what both of them need. A wave of pure killing intent erupts from Lucian, his eyes glowing with a terrifying light that finally exposes his true nature. Joshua Valdek's face contorts in pure shock, his eyes bulging as he realizes he has completely underestimated his trash brother. His boots skid across the stone floor, the sheer force of Lucian's initial movement throwing him into a frantic defensive retreat. With a blinding burst of speed, Lucian lunges forward, his training blade cutting through the air like a lethal streak of light. Joshua's pupils shrink in terror, a cold sweat drenching his brow as he stares into the abyss of Lucian's murderous golden eyes. Lucian remains perfectly poised, his body a coiled spring of lethal efficiency as he continues his relentless, calculated assault. Another powerful strike sends Joshua tumbling backward through the air, his defenses completely shattered by Lucian's superior technique. A close-up of Lucian's golden eye reveals his absolute focus, even as he notes that he's low on mana from his earlier spar with the Sword Saint. He looks down at his brother with a chilling lack of emotion, the vast gap between their skills becoming painfully clear. Joshua tries to find his footing, his movements frantic and uncoordinated as blue sparks of mana flicker around his boots. He collapses to the cracked ground, panting heavily while Lucian looms over him like a predator that has already won. Lucian doesn't let up, swinging his blade in a wide, shimmering arc that leaves a trail of blue energy in its wake. In an instant, the cold tip of the sword is pressed firmly against Joshua's throat, ending the fight before he could even attempt to counterattack. Joshua freezes, his mouth agape and his eyes wide with the realization that he was just a hair's breadth away from a painful end. Lucian lets out a low, manic chuckle, his eyes glowing with a terrifying intensity that finally reveals the sword demon lurking within him. The training session concludes with a brilliant burst of light, marking the definitive victory of the third son over the fourth. Later, the sun shines brightly over the sprawling Valdek estate, its fountains sparkling in the peaceful afternoon light. Hugo, the former street thug now in Lucian's service, strokes his chin thoughtfully, deeply impressed by the display of power he just witnessed. Nearby, Hans looks on with a bright, relieved smile, happy to see his young master finally receiving the respect he deserves. Back in his private quarters, Lucian's ornate sword hangs prominently on the wall, a symbol of his growing authority and lethality. A freshly written letter sits on his desk, its contents part of his elaborate plan to dominate the family and its territory. Lucian stands by the window, hands behind his back and whistling a cheerful tune, looking like a perfectly innocent noble youth. He licks his lips with a satisfied expression, already savoring the success of his latest manipulation and victory. A final close-up shows his sharp, knowing smirk, the look of a man who knows exactly how to play the Game of Thrones and win. Joshua Valdek looks up, his face twisted in disbelief and fear. He raises his training sword high, the blade catching the bright afternoon sun. Lucian looms over him, mocking the fact that his brother only calls him family when he's about to lose. Joshua's jaw drops, eyes wide with terror as the reality of the situation sinks in. The third son stares down, his eyes shadowed and unreadable. With a fluid movement, the victor easily parries the strike, closing the distance and ending the match. The training sword clatters to the floor, snapped in half. The fourth son collapses to his knees, trembling and gasping for air under the intense pressure. Lucian leans in with a small, dangerous smile as his defeated brother stares back with tears of humiliation. Later, back in his study, the young master reflects on the encounter, satisfied that the internal issues are being handled. He turns his attention to a report on the wall, already planning his next move. The document details the drug smuggling operation he intends to dismantle. At the main estate, a heavy hand slams down onto a stack of reports. Sigmund Valdek, the Grand Duke, looks on with a stern, appraising gaze. Lucian stands before his father in the garden, maintaining a perfectly composed and respectful posture. They sit down to discuss the situation in the Vestra territory, his newest strategic focus. The Duke taps his finger on the desk, finding the depth of the corruption uncovered to be absurd. His son explains the importance of the area and why House Logran must be stopped. The Grand Duke narrows his eyes, realizing that this smuggling route has been a massive blind spot for the family. The young man stands firm, his back straight as he presents his case to the most powerful man in the territory. He uses the analogy of a trapped beast, warning that even a cornered enemy can be lethal if not handled correctly. Just because they've found the trap doesn't mean they have the right tools to finish the hunt yet. Sigmund listens intently, impressed by the strategic depth his son is displaying. The garden remains quiet as the weight of the conversation settles between them. The father asks if this is truly the best path to take, testing his son's resolve. Without a hint of hesitation, the boy keeps his hands behind his back and holds his ground. His eyes flash with a sharp, predatory light as he confirms he'd gladly walk this dangerous path. He explains that while others might tremble, true bravery isn't just about swinging a spear himself. It's about leading the hunt. Lucian looks off to the side, his mind already miles away on the coming conflict. He adjusts his collar, acting casual despite the high-stakes political maneuvering he's just pulled off. He adds a playful disclaimer, noting he doesn't plan on being a saint while handling the dirty work. A hand reaches out to touch the delicate roses nearby, a sharp contrast to the violent topic of discussion. Sigmund watches him walk over to the flowers, sensing the transformation in his son's very soul. Lucian closes his eyes and exhales, acknowledging to himself that nothing in this world ever comes easy. He formally requests the support and resources needed to execute the plan. The Grand Duke reviews the final proposal, the paper rustling in the quiet greenhouse. The prince lets out a light, genuine laugh, seemingly relieved after the tense negotiation. A massive, dark-clawed paw appears in his mind, symbolizing the weight of the responsibility he's taking on. The Grand Valdek estate stands imposing under the sun, unaware of the shift in power happening within. In the hallways, the servants are already whispering about the third son's sudden and terrifying display of talent. Even in the kitchens, the maids gossip about how the trash brother completely dominated the sparring match. Nearby, Hugo waits with a grin, ready to serve as the muscle for the upcoming mission. Hans carries a heavy bundle through the estate, excitedly sharing the latest gossip about the third son with the other servants. Hugo strokes his chin thoughtfully, clearly intrigued by the rumors swirling around Lucian's sudden transformation. Joshua is already running his mouth to anyone who will listen, still reeling from the shock of what he just witnessed in the training grounds. Back in the quiet of his room, Lucian hums a light tune while gazing at a broken sword. He stands alone with his hands behind his back, looking perfectly content with the ripples he's caused within the family. The prince licks his finger with a cunning glint in his eye, already plotting his next several moves. In a flashback to the spar, Joshua stammers in fear, unable to believe this is the same brother he used to bully. A gleaming blade pierces the sky, cold and absolute in its precision. Lucian looms over his sibling like a predator, mocking the way he only acts like a brother when he's backed into a corner. The fourth son screams in pure terror, his arrogant facade completely shattered. Lucian's expression remains hidden in shadow, his gaze cold and detached from his brother's suffering. He stands tall over the fallen boy, the training match having turned into a total psychological slaughter. Even the loyal Hans can only watch from the sidelines, trembling at the sheer intensity radiating from his master. Lucian flashes a wide, terrifying grin, reveling in the control he now wields over those who once looked down on him. He leans in close, his predatory gaze pinning Joshua down as the boy looks more like a ghost than a person. In the present, the third son clenches his fist, the weight of his growing ambitions finally within reach. He glances back with a sharp, calculating look, ready to initiate the next phase of his plan. In the main hall, a powerful hand slams down onto a stack of incriminating reports. Sigmund Valdec, the Grand Duke, stares at the documents with a mix of suspicion and intrigue. Lucian is soon summoned to the garden greenhouse, standing before his father with a polite but firm demeanor. The two of them sit in the quiet garden, the air thick with unspoken tests and political weight. Sigmund points a finger at the reports, questioning the sudden competence of his once useless son. Lucian remains perfectly composed, his posture straight as he explains the necessity of his findings. He speaks of a beast caught in a trap, an eagle entangled in thorns that is still dangerous enough to require a careful hunt. He clarifies that while he has identified the enemy, he lacks the proper tools to finish the hunt himself. Sigmund closes his eyes, weighing the boy's words against the image of the weak son he thought he knew. The Duke speaks firmly, accusing Lucian of choosing the safe path by asking for authority instead of resolving the challenge alone. He stares through his son, looking for even a hint of hesitation or deceit in the boy's eyes. Lucian doesn't flinch, stating that the royal road is a path only those with true power can walk. The tension in the greenhouse is palpable as father and son lock horns over their differing ideologies. Lucian looks away, his expression hardening as he rejects the idea of reckless, unsupported bravery. He stands his ground against the Duke's immense pressure, refusing to be baited into a foolish solo mission. He sighs and rubs his neck, seemingly annoyed by his father's old-fashioned views on proving one's worth. His hand reaches for a blooming rose, a small, quiet moment amidst the harsh political negotiation. He stands by the flower pedestal, waiting patiently for the final verdict on his request for support. Lucian closes his eyes and mutters to himself about how there are absolutely no shortcuts when dealing with a man like Sigmund. The Duke finally speaks up, agreeing that mobilizing a large force would only tip off their enemies. He looks down at the proposal again, finally seeing the strategic brilliance hidden within his son's words. Lucian lets out a genuine, hearty laugh, relieved that he finally managed to secure the old man's approval. Sometime later, the scene shifts to the outskirts of Vestra, a city that has clearly been devastated by corruption. The buildings are in ruins and the air is eerily still, with the prince noting that the situation is far worse than he heard. Hooded and disguised, Lucian and Hugo begin their quiet walk into the heart of the decaying city. As they navigate the derelict streets of Vestra, Lucian glances back at his loyal aide, ensuring they remain undetected. He asks Hugo if the traps have been set correctly, receiving a confident and immediate confirmation. Lucian then probes further, asking Hugo if it wounds his pride that they had to rely on the Grand Duke's influence for this mission. Hugo clenches his fist in frustration, lamenting that if he only possessed greater strength, things might be different. He admits that, with more power, he could have secured the entire achievement for his young master without outside help. The weight of his perceived inadequacy hangs heavy in the air between the two men. Lucian reaches out and places a steadying hand on Hugo's shoulder, offering a silent gesture of support and trust, a metaphor for their journey, a single or cutting through dark, uncertain waters, guided by a steady hand. The prince advises Hugo that they must not let impatience cloud their vision or lead them astray from their ultimate goal. He tries to lighten the mood with a rare, playful laugh, reminding Hugo that they are still a team. Hugo remains deadly serious, noting that the path to true mastery is still a long and arduous journey. Lucian is caught off guard by the sheer intensity of his aide's dedication to improvement. Hugo manages a slight, knowing smirk, his internal fire for growth burning brighter than ever. Suddenly, a flock of birds erupts from the nearby ruins, their frantic wings a clear warning of an approaching threat. The pair comes to an abrupt halt in a desolate courtyard, the silence of the city now feeling predatory. Both men go on high alert, their eyes scanning the shifting shadows for the source of the disturbance. Hugo draws his sword with blinding speed as a dark figure lunges from the concealment of the ruins. A sharp metallic clang rings out as the ambush is met with Hugo's cold steel. To Hugo's absolute disbelief, his heavy blade is stopped dead by nothing but a single gloved palm. A mysterious man in a black cloak stands completely unmoved by the force of the strike. Hugo realizes with a jolt of fear that his opponent's speed and reaction time have already surpassed human limits. He struggles to reclaim his weapon, but it remains locked in the stranger's effortless grip. Lucian stands his ground behind Hugo, observing the encounter with a cold, analytical gaze. The prince steps forward into the light, demanding to know the identity and purpose of those stalking them. The cloaked figure shoves Hugo back with a casual display of overwhelming strength. Hugo manages to steady himself, though sweat beads on his brow from the brief, intense clash. Several more hooded figures emerge from the shadows, their presence surrounding the prince and his aide. The newcomers are a diverse group of elite warriors, including a woman with long silver hair. Their leader steps forward, a man with a grizzled beard and a commanding aura that demands respect. He introduces his group as the Black Lion and assures Lucian that they have no hostile intent toward him. Lucian is stunned. In his previous life, this group was so secretive that many believed they were merely a myth. The two parties face each other in the center of the square, the air crackling with unspoken tension. Surveying each member of the legendary squad, Lucian realizes that every one of them is a combat monster. A subtle, satisfied smile touches Lucian's lips. His plan is coming together more perfectly than he imagined. The group moves to an abandoned building, seeking shelter from the prying eyes that might still linger in the ruins. Inside the dusty, long-forgotten tavern, Lucian takes a seat at the bar while the warriors assemble. He delivers his primary objective with ice-cold clarity. The man in charge of the drug operations must be taken alive. He looks up, his eyes burning with a ruthless determination that sends a chill through the room. The Black Lion leader watches the prince carefully, recognizing the soul of a true leader within the young man. Lucian is impressed by the leader's composure, noting that he didn't falter for a second during their unexpected meeting. He realizes the mercenary had already evaluated their combat strength before a single word was even spoken. With their alliance solidified, the Black Lions prepare to dismantle the corruption festering in the heart of Vestra. As the sun begins to set, a luxurious Valdec carriage rattles through the city square, its rhythmic pace a stark contrast to the growing tension within. Inside the cabin, Joshua Valdec sits in a brooding silence, his attention held by the maid Jenny who stands before him. Jenny reaches out to hand a small, white envelope to her young master, her expression carefully neutral as she passes on the secret message. The carriage continues its journey, the shadows stretching long across the pavement as the day draws to a close. Joshua dabs at his mouth with a handkerchief, his voice cold and impatient as he commands they finish their business and return to the main house immediately. His frustration boils over, and he clenches the cloth in a white-knuckled grip, his face twisted in a scowl of pure, unadulterated anger.